Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about Sachin Tendulkar. Now, a lot of people call him the god of cricket, but we're going to try to go a little deeper than that today and figure out exactly why he's such an icon. So we've got his Wikipedia article pulled up, and you told me before we started that there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah. I think his story really goes beyond just what he accomplished on the field. It really is this remarkable journey from child prodigy to carrying like the hopes of a billion people on his shoulders and how he dealt with all that pressure and everything else that comes with it.
Right. And speaking of starting young, I mean, he starts playing cricket when he's 11 years old.
Yeah.
And immediately you start seeing these flashes of brilliance.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not just flashes of brilliance. Like this guy forms this legendary partnership. There's his friend Vinod Kambli, and they rack up this unbelievable 664 runs in a school match. A record that stood for 20 years.
Wow, 664 runs. That's just insane. I mean, it's one thing to be good at something when you're young, but to set a record that lasts for 2 decades?
Yeah, and think about it. It wasn't just about the runs. Even at that young age, people were noticing his technique, like his composure at the crease, and like a maturity that was way beyond his years. And there's this great story about Dennis Lillee, this legendary Australian fast bowler, sees him at this training camp, and it advises him, like straight up tells him to focus on his batting.
And that's Dennis Lillee, like one of the greatest bowlers to ever play the game.
Exactly. Like talk about incredible foresight, recognizing that talent so early on.
Yeah, that must have been such a validation. And it's not just Lillee. We also have Sunil Gavaskar, another absolute legend of Indian cricket.
Oh, yeah. Goes out of his way to encourage Tendulkar. Like imagine that. You're this young kid.
Yeah.
And you've got these giants of the game believing in you.
Right. These are your idols, essentially. I mean, how much confidence does that give you? And speaking of confidence, I mean, all this early promise translates into some remarkable achievements pretty quickly. He's only 14 years old.
14. And he makes his debut for Bombay in the Ranji Trophy, which is essentially the top domestic cricket competition in India.
Wow. So like the major leagues of baseball.
Exactly. I mean, just think about that for a second. He's 14 years old, playing against grown men. And what does he do?
He doesn't just play. He becomes the youngest Indian to score a century on his first-class debut. 100 runs in a single inning.
It was clear right then and there that this kid was something special.
Yeah, like he was destined for greatness or something. So we've got him dominating school cricket, making waves in the Ranji Trophy. So I'm guessing the next step is...
on the international stage. He debuts for India in both test matches and ODIs.
And remind me again, what's the difference?
Test matches are the longer, more traditional format of the game. They can last for like 5 days. ODIs are the shorter, faster-paced version.
Got it. So he debuts in both of these formats.
When he's only 16 years old.
16? That's barely old enough to drive in these places.
And just to add to the impressiveness of that, he actually became the youngest player ever to debut for India in both of those formats.
Talk about making an entrance. But I imagine facing international competition at that age must have been a real trial by fire.
Oh, absolutely. Especially against Pakistan. They had this fearsome pace attack back then. These guys were bowling absolute rockets.
Yeah, I remember reading about him. He gets hit on the nose. He's bleeding.
I mean, come on.
But he refuses to leave the field.
What a warrior. That just shows you the kind of grit and determination this guy had. I mean, here he is, this young kid, facing down some of the most intimidating bowlers in the world. And he refuses to back down.
Yeah. That's incredible. It's no wonder people admire his bravery as much as his talent. So even though his introduction to international cricket was tough, he clearly had the skills and the mental toughness to succeed.
Yeah, and he didn't just survive. He thrived his early centuries. These moments of brilliance under immense pressure cemented his place in the Indian team. He even receives praise from Wisden Cricketer's Almanac, which is like the Bible of cricket, for his maturity and classic batting style.
So he's like the chosen one, basically.
Pretty much.
All right, so we've got him starting young, dominating at every level, and now he's announced his arrival on the international stage. What happens next?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Because his career isn't just about talent. It's about this relentless pursuit of excellence, constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible in cricket.
And when you look at his record, it's almost hard to fathom he became the leading run scorer in both test matches and ODIs.
Which is incredible in itself.
Yeah.
Like that alone is an amazing accomplishment.
Right.
But then you add on top of that this unbelievable feat of scoring 100 international centuries.
There's 100 centuries. No one else has even come close to that.
Nope. No one. It's a testament to his longevity,
Yeah.
his consistency, and his incredible hunger for runs.
I mean, the mental fortitude required to stay at the top of your game for that long. It's like hitting the home run record in baseball and then saying, okay, let me do that again and again and again.
And again. And he did it with such grace and style. Speaking of style, we got to talk about his Desert Storm innings.
Oh, yes. Desert Storm, 143 runs in Sharjah against that Australian bowling attack.
Pure magic.
What made that inning so special? I mean, beyond the sheer number of runs.
It was a masterclass. The scorching heat, the pressure of the tournament, the quality of the opposition, he just seemed to transcend it all.
Yeah, I remember watching highlights of that match. It was like he was on a mission.
He was. Every shot was purposeful, driven by this will to win.
And it wasn't just about individual brilliance either. That innings propelled India to the final of the tournament.
Absolutely. He always seemed to rise to the occasion, especially when the stakes were high.
And of course, we can't talk about Tendulkar without talking about the World Cup.
We can't. It's a story filled with heartbreak and ultimate triumph.
Yeah. It really mirrors the emotional roller coaster that is Indian cricket.
Yeah, you start with the disappointment of 1996, and then you culminate with that glorious victory in 2011.
1996 was tough. That semifinal against Sri Lanka, a lot of controversy surrounding that match.
It was a heartbreaker for Indian fans. That match was disrupted by crowd trouble, and ultimately it was awarded to Sri Lanka.
Yeah, it was a bitter pill to swallow. But then 2011, it all comes together. Tendulkar, nearing the end of his career, finally lifts the World Cup trophy.
What a moment. It was a culmination of years of hard work, dedication, unwavering belief. It transcended sports. It became a symbol of national pride.
Yeah, it felt like 1 billion dreams had been fulfilled.
It did.
And let's not forget, he's the only player to score over 30,000 runs in all forms of international cricket.
That's a statistic that's almost impossible to comprehend.
Right.
And, while we focus a lot on his individual achievements, we can't overlook his partnerships, especially the one with Rahul Dravid.
Yes, the famous Tendulkar-Dravid duo.
What a pair. The record partnership of 6,920 runs speaks volumes about their understanding and their shared commitment to excellence.
What made them so special? What made their partnership click?
They just complemented each other perfectly. Dravid, known as the Wall, was this picture of solidity and patience. And then you had Tendulkar, the Master Blaster, bringing his explosive stroke play to the crease.
A truly dynamic duo. It's clear that Tendulkar's impact extended far beyond his individual stats. He became this larger-than-life figure, a symbol of hope and inspiration for an entire nation.
Yeah, he transcended the boundaries of the cricket field. And his influence is particularly profound in India, where cricket is more than just a sport, it's a cultural phenomenon.
It's a way of life.
Yeah, and he became a role model for millions, not just aspiring cricketers, but anyone striving to make their mark on the world.
He really embodies that idea that with dedication, discipline, and a whole lot of passion, even seemingly impossible dreams can be achieved.
And he did it all with such grace and humility.
That's what's so remarkable. It's not just about the talent. It's about the way he carried himself, the way he inspired others.
It makes you wonder, what is it about certain athletes that allows them to transcend their sport and become cultural icons? Is it just talent? Or is there something more at play?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll definitely explore further. But for now, let's take a quick break. And we'll be back in a moment to dive even deeper into the remarkable life and career of Sachin Tendulkar.
It's amazing how some players don't just meet expectations, they completely shatter them.
And when you look at Tendulkar's record, it's hard to even process.
It really is.
Like, he became the leading run scorer in both test matches and ODIs.
An incredible achievement.
Right. And then on top of that, he scores 100 international centuries.
Let me repeat that. 100 international centuries. No other cricketer has even come close to that.
It's mind-boggling. The longevity, the consistency, and then the drive to keep going. Like, what keeps you going after you reach 100?
I don't know. Maybe he just loves the game that much.
And the pressure, too, to perform at that level for so long, it's got to be immense.
Absolutely. But one thing that always stood out to me about Tendulkar was his ability to deliver when it mattered most.
Like when the stakes were highest.
Exactly. And there's no better example of that than his innings in Sharjah.
Oh, yeah. Desert Storm.
143 runs against that Australian bowling attack.
In that heat. It was insane.
Talk about a pressure cooker. But he just rose to the occasion.
Yeah. I remember watching the highlights of that match. It was like he was in a zone. Every shot was so purposeful.
He was on a mission. And that mission was to win.
And he almost did. That innings propelled India to the final of the tournament.
It did. And, speaking of big moments, we got to talk about Tendulkar's World Cup journey.
Wow, the World Cup. I mean, talk about an emotional roller coaster.
Ups and downs, heartbreak and triumph. It's all there.
Starting with the disappointment of 1996.
A tough one to swallow.
And then culminating with that glorious victory in 2011.
It's like a movie script.
1996 was tough. That semifinal against Sri Lanka still gives me chills thinking about it.
Yeah, it was a heartbreaker for Indian fans. The match was disrupted by crowd trouble.
It was chaos.
And ultimately, the match was awarded to Sri Lanka.
A controversial decision, but one that ultimately went against India.
Tough pill to swallow.
But then 2011,
Redemption.
Tendulkar, nearing the end of his career, finally lifts the World Cup trophy.
What a moment.
A billion dreams fulfilled.
It really was. It was a culmination of years of hard work, dedication, unwavering belief.
It transcended sport. It was a moment of national pride.
Absolutely.
And, on top of all that, he's the only player to score over 30,000 runs in all forms of international cricket.
A truly mind-boggling statistic.
Like, how is that even possible?
It speaks to his consistency, his longevity, his dedication to the sport.
And, while we focused a lot on his individual achievements, we can't forget his partnership with Rahul Dravid.
Oh, yes. The dynamic duo.
What made their partnership so special?
They just complemented each other perfectly. Dravid was known as the wall. Solid, patient, unwavering.
Right.
And then you had Tendulkar, the master blaster.
Yeah.
Bringing his explosive stroke play to the crease.
A perfect balance.
They were a force to be reckoned with. And their record partnership of 6,920 runs speaks volumes about their understanding and shared commitment to excellence.
Yeah, it's clear that Tendulkar's impact extends far beyond just his stacks and accolades.
Oh, absolutely.
He became this larger-than-life figure, a symbol of hope and inspiration for an entire nation.
He transcended the boundaries of the cricket field. And his influence is particularly profound in India, where cricket is more than just a sport.
It's a way of life.
Exactly. And he became a role model for millions, not just aspiring cricketers, but anyone striving to make their mark on the world.
He really embodies that idea that with dedication, discipline, and a whole lot of passion, even seemingly impossible dreams can be achieved.
And he did it all with such grace and humility.
It's funny. I was reading an article the other day, and it was talking about how Tendulkar's influence goes beyond just sports.
I'm not surprised.
Like, it touches on themes of national pride, resilience, the pursuit of excellence.
He represents something bigger than himself.
Yeah, and that resonates with people from all walks of life.
It does. And that brings up an interesting question. What is it about certain athletes that allows them to transcend their sport and become these cultural icons? Is it just talent, or is there something more?
That's a great question, and it's something I've thought about a lot. I think it's a combination of things. Obviously, talent is a big part of it.
You gotta have the skills.
Right, but it's also about personality, charisma, and the ability to connect with people on a deeper level.
And impact.
Yeah.
Both on and off the field.
Exactly. And Tendulkar had all of those things in spades.
He did?
He was incredibly talented. He was dedicated to his craft. And he always carried himself with dignity and respect.
He was a class act.
And, off the field, he was just as impressive.
He used his platform to give back to the community.
He became involved in philanthropy.
He even served as a member of parliament for a time.
That's right.
And talk about a well-rounded individual.
He truly is an inspiration.
And his story is far from over.
I think his influence will continue to be felt for generations to come.
No doubt about it. He really is something special, isn't he?
Absolutely. Sachin Tendulkar, a true legend of the game.
A global icon.
And his story, it's about so much more than just cricket.
It is.
About dedication.
Perseverance.
The pursuit of excellence.
And the power of dreams.
And the impact he's had on people.
Millions around the world.
It's truly remarkable.
It makes you think, what is it that makes certain athletes transcend their sport and become these cultural icons?
Yeah, what is that secret sauce?
Is it just talent?
I don't think so.
Talent's obviously a huge part of it.
Of course. But it's got to be more than that. It's like this combination of factors.
Yeah.
Like their skill.
A personality.
Your impact, both on and off the field.
Tendulkar had all of that.
He did. And he carried himself with such grace and humility.
Always a class act.
And I think that's what makes him so special.
It's that certain something extra.
Yeah, that X factor.
That allows them to connect with people on a deeper level.
And inspired generations.
It's been an honor diving deep into his story.
It has. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time.